Hey, sweet friends, it's Anna from Salt and Speech, and I wanted to welcome you to the Salt and Speech podcast, where we talk about topics and issues from a biblical perspective with practical steps so that we can walk out God's truth daily. So grab your Bible, your journal, and a pair of headphones, and let's see what God's Word has to say about it. Hey, sweet friends, and welcome to the Salt and Speech pod. I'm Anna, your host, and today is a very exciting day because my very dear friend Macy Cates is with us. So thank you so much, Macy, for being on the show.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
It's a very exciting day. So to give the people context as to our friendship, would you mind just sharing how we met?
Yeah, so we're going to a UGA watch party of a mutual friend.
Go Dogs.
Yeah, go Dogs. Kind of random that I went, kind of random that she went, and then we just ended up chatting the night away, talking all about singleness.
Oh.
And about, I remember talking about like food habits. She's health queen.
I don't know if I go that far, but I remember us talking about just random things.
Yeah.
And we, you know, when you like meet someone and first of all, we ran in similar circles, so it was weird that we hadn't met at that point. But when you meet someone and just start talking to them and it's like flowing, like you're just having a blast. Like that was what it was like. We just like connected and talked the rest of the night. And so that was kind of the rest is history. The next year we ended up rooming together, which was crazy. The Lord completely worked that one around because she was going to go overseas all summer. And I remember I called her and I was just talking to her, praying with her, and then was like, hey, I need somewhere to live. And she was like, actually, I think our roommate's not living with us anymore. Yeah. And so I ended up living with her and our sweet roommate, Casey, and it was just the best year. So the Lord knew what he was doing when he put us together.
Yeah, it was cool. Even from the start, the first night that we'd met, I remember thinking, like, there's just some people where it's like, okay, I can feel that the Lord is with them because it's so easy to talk about the Lord. And so I just remember thinking that, and I think that was such a sweet foundation of friendship. So
it was.
Yeah.
I felt the same way. Macy has always been a little beacon of light for me and draw me closer to the Lord. So very thankful for you. Well, it's just the truth. It's just the truth. But whenever I have someone on the podcast, I like to do a little icebreaker question because I feel like it helps people get to know your personality and just who you are. So my question for you is, what character from a book, movie, or TV show do you relate most to and why?
I don't know if I would say that I necessarily relate the most to this person because I've only seen a few episodes of this show. But people have told me that I remind them of Rory Gilmore, at least the earlier version of her.
Yes. I can confirm. That is very accurate.
So I guess maybe her. I don't feel like there's anyone that I really like relate to, so I feel like I guess I'm kind of similar to her.
You are.
So
I would have to say, because I love Gilmore Girls. I've seen it. It's kind of embarrassing, but I feel like I've watched it like 5 times all the way through. Like it's a lot. And you really are her. But if anyone who has watched the whole season, all the seasons of Gilmore Girls, you know that you kind of start to hate her a little bit. But the first couple of seasons when she's just like who she is and she's just kind and nice and she loves books and she's beautiful and everyone loves her, that's who Macy reminds me of, that for sure. So I think that's a very, very accurate description of you. So
what would you say?
About you?
No, for you.
Oh gosh. I don't know. I feel like if it could be anybody, I would want to be Rapunzel. I love her. She's awesome. And she's just so free.
Happy-go-lucky girl.
Yeah, she's just so free and she loves everyone. So kind. So I'd love to be more like Rapunzel. So there we go.
You are like her. Very joyful and happy and bringing life to the room.
Wow, Macy. I feel so seen and loved right now. Wow, thank you. Well, before we go into our topic, I just kind of want people to get to know you a little bit better. So can you just kind of tell us where you're at in life, what you're doing, your goals, dreams, anything you want to just tell us about you?
Yeah. So right now I'm living in the Atlanta area and I'm working at like a preschool daycare center with little 1-year-olds. But the main reason I live in the area I live is because there's a largely refugee community and population, and I want to live missionally while I'm there. Just reaching out to people in the community that are from places and countries that we wouldn't be able to go into, at least not easily,
Yeah.
and share truth with them, especially as they're experiencing a lot of hardship and hopelessness from their experience. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm considering getting a master's in social work to maybe do counseling, but I'm also considering missions in the future. There are lots of things up in the air, which is exciting.
It
and
is.
We'll see where God leads over these next few years. So
no, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's her. And when we were in college, she was what was it? Was it president, or what would you call it? The top person, one of the top people of ISM, which was International Student Ministry. So Macy had that the whole senior year and was very involved, really connected. And I mean, being her roommate, I got to see how much she poured into that. And she was meeting with people all the time. She was bringing people to church. She was loving people so well, just being super selfless in that. And so the fact that you want to do missions, and I don't even know, just what you're doing right now, it just makes so much sense to me because of who you are. So love this girl. You're the best.
Oh, you are.
Oh, whatever. So today we are going to talk about singleness, but within singleness, we're going to talk about contentment. So when this drops, it'll be around Valentine's Day. And we all know, if you're single, it can be a little bit difficult, especially in that month, just because everyone seems to be dating someone. Everyone seems to be married, getting engaged, whatever. Yeah. And so when you're single, it kind of hits a little bit harder. And so we just kind of wanted to talk about contentment. This has also been something that we've just talked about together. I remember in our Athens home, just being on the couch and having some really cool conversations just about this topic. And so I was like, who would be incredible to talk about this? Macy, because I love her heart on this topic. And I think she has a lot of depth, and the Lord has taught her a lot of things. So Macy, your first question. How has your view on singleness changed with the Lord?
Yeah, it's changed in a lot of ways, especially back from when I was in high school and younger. I did date someone for like a year and a half in between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college. And I remember when I first was single after that, it was really difficult, and I really felt the loss of having somebody really close to me. And I think that space allowed for the Lord to fill that with his presence. And so I've gotten to see that grow over time, and just trusting that the Lord can fill all of your needs, where it's a gift to have somebody, and I got to experience that, but I think to an unhealthy extent. So I think has been a gift to get to see the Lord be like everything, like last Valentine's Day, I remember just feeling so much joy because I felt like, you know what, the Lord is my Valentine,
Absolutely.
He is the person that I can go to with anything. He's the person that will love me regardless of the mistakes I make, or really anything. And so I think He's just shown me over time how much He fills all of your heart, and so I'm really grateful to be able to experience that and to know that is truth, that you don't need anything else, even if it is a gift to have it. So
I love that so much, because we've talked about this, like how I think when you're single, you kind of have to be in this space of complete dependency, because when you are dating someone, and we've both lived this, but when you are dating someone, you kind of go to them for everything. Like you go to them for companionship, and when you're upset, and when you're happy. And when you don't have that, you really, it's kind of like a little bit isolating in a way. And so you kind of really have to turn to the Lord. And so in singleness, it provides you an opportunity to really have that foundation of dependency and reliance on the Lord that will continue even in dating. But it's like, it's cool that you got out of a relationship that a lot of people would be like, man, that stinks. But to you, it's like, no, it's actually kind of plummeted you into this depth with the Lord that has now created this foundation that the next time you are in a relationship, it's going to be even better, because you're going to be way more rooted in the Lord.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I remember, like, the months after, I was reading through the Psalms, and a verse that really, really stuck out to me and is still probably my favorite verse to this day is Psalm 73:25-26. And it says, "Whom have I in heaven but you, and earth has nothing I desire beside you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever."
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's always really stuck with me that, yeah, God is the only thing that we will always have in full,
Wow.
on earth and in heaven. So, yeah, it's one of my favorite verses. So,
That's beautiful. And this past summer, I worked at a summer camp, and Macy was writing me some letters, and it was so sweet. And one of the letters you sent me, you wrote out at the very end, you were like, "Anna, you have all that you need, Psalm 23:1." And I was like, Psalm 23 says that? And I guess I don't even know. And so I went and read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need.
Yeah.
I shall not want is what I had in my brain, but it means I have all that I need in you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went through the rest of summer, I literally told that to so many staff members. And it was something that ministered not only to me, but so many other people because of you just sharing what you felt like the Lord was trying to say. And to this day, I cling to Psalm 23:1 because of the way that you shared it, and it completely changed the way I saw that verse. So I think it's beautiful, especially in times of like, man, I feel like I'm lacking, to go to those kind of verses and be like, no, the Bible says that I don't lack because I have Jesus.
Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful.
And I will say there's times where you don't feel that as much,
Yeah.
where like it is hard and you look around and you want like a relationship or something. Like that does, I've experienced that, especially in times where I'm not walking as closely with the Lord,
Yeah.
Because if you're not feeling yourself fully with Him, then you're gonna want to look other places.
Absolutely.
And so it's not always the most easy thing, but it is the truth.
Yes.
And we can cling to it.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
Second question that I have for you is, what does contentment look like day to day? Which we just kind of touched on that, but what does it look like in your life? Like, what are things that you do that help you stay in that space of contentment?
The word that just comes to my mind, and like first thing, is abide. Like I just said, if you're not, you have to fill yourself with the Lord, like His word and time with Him to be content with Him. Just like with any like relationship or anything, you have to spend time for it to like be a big part of your life.
Yeah.
To be your life.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I notice a huge difference in the way that I view everything, specifically the way I view like my singleness when I am or am not spending deep time with the Lord every day.
Wow.
And there's seasons where I have not done that and like not been in the Word, and those are definitely seasons where I'm more discontent. But having those daily rhythms of being in the Word and prayer and seeking the Lord, I think that is such a huge key in being content in Him, in realizing that you really don't need anything else besides Him. So
that's great. I think about, and I'm going to read it, but one of my favorite passages is Philippians 4. And I think we all know Philippians 4:13, but I love the verses before it because I think it gives context to what that's even talking about. But it says, I don't say this out of need, for I've learned to be content in whatever circumstances I find myself. I know both how to make do with little, and I know how to make do with a lot. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being content. Whether well-fed or hungry, whether in abundance or in need, I'm able to do all things through Him who strengthens me. And that is super profound because I think, He's like, I found the secret to contentment. And when I read that, I was like, well, what is that? And it's Jesus. Jesus is the secret to contentment, because if you have that relationship, which is what you're talking about, like if you have that daily walk, if you are moving in that direction with Him, if you are consistent, which is a huge thing, if you're consistent with the Lord, and your desire is to be close to Him, it says if you draw close to Him, He'll draw close to you. And He's the only one who can fill those voids for us. So I think that is a beautiful step to take, is what you're saying, is that it may not seem like a big deal, but just getting in your word daily and seeking after Him. And I think another thing is, rejoicing in him and giving him thanks. I think Thanksgiving is a huge way, if you're feeling discontent or down, a great way to kind of like turn your mind in a different direction is to just give him thanks for everything that he's done. And you know, look around you, the trees and what you have and who you are, just like thanking him for everything. And so I think that's a great way too to stay in that mindset with the Lord. So
Definitely.
that's great. Thank you for that. Okay, so another question is, why is God our first love? Because you kind of touched on that a little while ago about how like you found out that God was everything that you need, and that you said he was your Valentine in last February. And so what does it mean that God is our first love?
The first thing that comes to my mind again is that the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, mind, and strength.
Yeah.
And so that's the greatest commandment, and that's what we're called to do, and that's what God wants of our hearts, to be solely committed to him. And so it's so important that we do seek him and make him a priority over all other things.
Right.
And sometimes that looks like having times of singleness where you do have to figure that out. You know, you have to figure out that nothing else is going to like satisfy the way that he will.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. And I wrote down 1 John 4:19, which talks a lot about love. 1 John talks a lot about love, but it says, you know, not that we first loved him, but that he first loved us. And so Jesus is love. God is love. And so Jesus has always been our first love. And I think back, I had a moment with the Lord this summer, and I was having a conversation with him, and because I used to be in a relationship, and it was like the only relationship I've ever been in. And I was talking to him, and I was like, man, like thinking ahead to dating someone else and maybe marriage, I was like, you know, I think I've messed up first love. Like, because everyone's always like, oh, your first love is, you know, the biggest, and you never forget it. And it's always, you know, and people say that it can be super discouraging to hear that kind of thing and be like, well, how can I love someone else if I've already loved someone? And so I was having this conversation with the Lord, and I was like, man, God, I feel like I messed this up. Like, how am I ever going to love someone else? And the Lord was like, I'm your first love. And it was profound to me because he like spoke it right to me. And I sat there and I was like, you're right. Like, I can't mess up my first love because you were my first love. Like, you have my deepest affection. You have my deepest love. You are the one who will never leave my heart or mind. And so it doesn't matter what my past has looked like. If you bring someone into my life, you're going to give me greater capacity for them. And so it almost just encouraged me to know that it doesn't matter at all what your past looked like. It doesn't matter what your dating experiences looked like. It doesn't matter how long you've been in a relationship or what that has looked like. God is your first love. And because of that, there's hope that if he brings someone into your life, you know, he will give you the capacity to love them very deeply, even more than your past relationships. And so I think that's just an encouragement, but I love that he is that for us. And even if you date someone, it's not like God's a placeholder. It's not like Jesus is a placeholder and then that guy comes in and that's who gets all of your affection and attention and Jesus kind of moves to the side. It's Jesus stays in that spot that we've learned in singleness. Like, he is everything. He has all my affection and attention. So Jesus has my whole heart, and whoever this guy is will have my heart, but not to the extent that Jesus does, because Jesus is the only one who will have all of me, you know, and everything in that kind of relationship. So just having those priorities set in singleness is important.
Yes, I agree. And another thing with that is something that we've talked about before, in that all of the things that we're longing for in love, in a relationship, like, Jesus does fulfill them even better than a relationship can or will.
Yes.
You know, we want to feel like cared for and like valued. And when we go to the Word, we see that God does those things better than any person or man ever could.
Wow.
And so one thing that we were talking about last year is like, when you start to feel like this desire for a relationship, like pinpoint like what you're wanting, and then it's like, okay, wait, God actually fulfills that thing, and like really chase after that with him, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that helps, even if once you do go into a relationship, for God to not just be like the placeholder.
Yeah.
Because it's like, wait, these things that I'm wanting from this man, I already have from the Lord. So you don't need it like as much from him, you know? it's like a gift from them, and they're never going to live up to it as perfectly
Yeah.
as you want, because they can't. And so to have that standard kind of taken down, because it's like, oh, God is the only one who can do this perfectly for me, I think helps both inside and outside of a relationship a lot.
Because I think if we don't have that fulfillment in God, we can really feel like we can put a lot of pressure on whoever we're with, because it's like we're desiring love and affirmation from them. And it's not like they shouldn't love us and they shouldn't affirm and they shouldn't do all that. They should, but like you're saying, they're never going to be the perfect love like Jesus is. So putting all of that on Jesus and saying like, yes, I have standards, and yes, you know, these are things that I want to make sure I have in a spouse, but at the same time, you know, not getting angry that this person isn't fulfilling me because he can't fulfill me. You know, my fulfillment comes from Christ, and this is like a bonus, but it's not an identity of like who I am. And so I think that's really, really important. Wow. I love that. Yeah, I love that. Oh my goodness, the Lord is great. So how has your journey been with learning that no human compares to God and that he truly is the sustainer is kind of what we're talking about, but kind of like, when did you realize that, and kind of what was the journey between kind of relying more on a boyfriend and a guy and then kind of getting to the point where you're like, oh no, God actually is the number one thing?
Yeah. I think going back to that time when I had just broken up with my boyfriend and was really clinging to that verse of like, whom have I in heaven but you? It was a time where I kind of got to like go to the roots of my faith, because not only with that, I was starting college and it was just a lot of newness. And yeah, I just got to really like dig deep in a way that I hadn't before. And that was so helpful, because it gave me the foundation to know truth and to know God's love for me and to know how much he deserved my love and like all my life. And so having that period, I think just college in general, I learned so much about him through studies I did, through individual reading, through experiences I had. I just got to see how worthy he was. And he showed up in so many different ways and so many different times. And there were moments I had of doubt and of wrestling, and he met me each time in them and gave me the chance to, like work through those things. And he was beside me the whole time, and I know that, being able to look back at it. So yeah, I'm just really grateful for the experiences he has brought me through. And I think it's just such a sweet thing to know, even when you don't feel like you're closest to the Lord or feel it so much, to be able to know that he's still there. His presence is constant and that it never leaves. This is kind of a random experience I had, but I was in a cemetery last year. I don't know, it was just like a peaceful place, kind of. And I was just praying, and I feel like the Lord really highlighted to me through being there. It was just that life here is so temporary, in that I was about to graduate and experiencing a lot of change. And it's like, okay, most of everything around me is changing. And even the things that aren't, they're not going to last forever. You know, nothing on this earth is going to last forever.
Right.
And it was just such a sweet thing to be reminded that God is constant, that he's never going to change, because change is hard, but we can cling to something that never changes. And I was just so grateful for that, to remember that we have this person, this love with us, that is the most consistent, beautiful thing we could ever desire, you know?
And thank God for that.
Yeah.
Like, thank God that he is the sustainer, that he does fulfill every desire. And I mean, obviously he must fulfill every desire and he must sustain us, because I mean, even when we look at Paul, you know, and just other people in the Bible who were single, who never married, like they were so content in the Lord. So we can even see from other people's testimonies that it is real and that it can happen. And so that's beautiful. I love that. So part of the podcast that we really try to be intentional about is providing next steps for people, because we can talk about this subject all day, and we have found ways to live this out. But for people who are struggling in it and who don't really know what to do next, what can we do for them? So what are practical ways that we can all become more content? What are those steps that we can take right now to make us closer to that space with the Lord where we realize He does sustain us and He is everything?
Yeah. I think there's a few things that come to my mind. Number one is spending time with Him, as we've talked about. It's so important to be in the Word and to be refreshed and renewed daily.
Yeah.
By His truth. And that is not always going to be easy, but it is worth it in the end, to just be with Him and to grow in relationship with Him, because that's how we know that His relationship with Him is above any other thing on this earth, including an earthly relationship. One thing for me that has been helpful at times is having certain key verses or even songs that I can cling to when it's hard or when I'm feeling kind of low. Like the verse that I've brought up a few times, Psalm 73, 25-26, has been really important. And then a song that I've really loved that has been really sweet has been a song called Weathered by Bethel.
I love that song.
It's such a good song, and I feel like it reminds me of that His love is deeper than any human love can be. I also really love listening to hymns because I feel like they have a lot of truth about how worthy God is and how He's just so good. So having certain verses in songs that you can go to when you are feeling the struggle, I think is really, really key. And just having community friends, if that is an option, to go to people who can you can talk about the hardships with and the joys with, and who can encourage and sharpen you. When we lived together last year, being able to talk about when it was hard, and then being able to encourage each other in the truth that we know, but we don't always remember when,
it's real.
Easy when we hear it from somebody else, it's just reaffirming and really helpful. So if you have people around you who are in a similar situation, just be an encouragement to one another. And I think that can be really sweet. So those are some of my steps. You have anything?
No, that's so good. I feel like you hit so many of them, and that's, I think it's beautiful because we got to walk all of that out together last year, and it was so special. And I'm just super grateful for that time with you and how you poured so much truth and wisdom into my heart. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, I think the only thing I would say is take some inventory. So I had to do this a lot after my breakup, but take some inventory of the things that are making you feel discontent. A lot of times that can be movies, just rom-coms, or that can be love songs, or whatever it is that when you start to encounter it, it could even be social media because you just have a ton of couples on your page. I don't really know, but whatever it is that once you start consuming it, you feel sad and alone and you just start feeling down, just cut that out. It's not forever. You don't have to cut it out for the rest of your life, but just take a period of time, almost like a fast, and say, okay, God, this is kind of pushing me closer to discontentment and away from you. So I'm just going to cut this out. And instead, I'm just going to consume your truth. I'm going to consume your word. I'm going to consume time with you and worship and podcasts, whatever that looks like, just to grow closer to the Lord. Just replace those things that are causing you to kind of veer towards discontentment and kind of pull yourself back to the Lord and just kind of keep them at the forefront of your mind, like Macy's saying. So I think that's all I have. But thank you so much, Macy, for coming on the show. It means so much that you're here and that you said yes.
It was so much fun. I love talking about these things. Love hanging out with you.
Absolutely.
Love getting to be here at our little podcast area.
I love it here. It's wonderful on this couch.
Yes, super cozy.
Little blue couch, yes. Well, I pray that everyone who's listening and watching, you really got something from this podcast. I pray that the Lord spoke to you, because He definitely spoke to us during this conversation, and He is just so, so faithful. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you next time on the Salt and Speech podcast.
Bye.